Correct.
Whatever. Good. Welcome to the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. I'm Joey Calvo. Uh, Thank you for watching us on YouTube and PhillyCAM TV. And I apologize, Dr. Gary Sprouse, our guest, because I cut him off. We actually had started something the last episode with me.
Okay.
And that's where I was going at. But we can change it.
No, that's fine.
But we can change it to, you can take up the whole thing on, stress reduction and stuff. So our guest, Dr. Gary Sprouse, is extremely passionate about bringing happiness into people's lives through humor, compassion, and understanding. He has a unique perspective on stress, and no one is talking about. So, Dr. Gary, welcome back to the podcast. First of all,
Yeah, thanks for having me back. This is awesome.
All right. So, you wanted to talk about less stress. So, I'm going to give you the platform to bring it all out.
Okay. So, when I first started this whole project, the whole focus for me was how to have less stress and then how to find your happy place. And that's how I wrote the first book. But since then, what's happened is I came up with this new model for addiction, because what I found was that when I started looking at where our stresses are coming from, one of the things that I had to look at is, well, what do people do when they're under stress? And so what I found was that everybody has different stress reducers. So they found something that reduces their stress. So when they're stressed out, they watch TV, they exercise, they go to church, they pray, they drink alcohol, they smoke a cigarette, whatever they do, right? But here's my realization. If your stress reducer starts causing problems, so your stress reducer starts becoming a stress producer, well, now you're in trouble. And what I labeled that was as a stress reducer loop. So now you have stress, you do your stress reducer, but it's causing stress. So now you do your stress reducer, but it's causing stress. So now you're in this loop. And what I found was that model is the underpinning to every addiction that's out there, because it's all the same. So in this model, stress reducer loop, anybody can end up in a loop, and anything that people do to reduce their stress can end up in a loop. So I'm going to give you an example from a book I just read. It's called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. And this guy's a physician, and he's writing about addiction. Mm-hmm. And what he said is he was in this very poor neighborhood of Vancouver where he was taking care of all these people that are heroin and cocaine addicts. But what he realized while he was there was that, these people picked cocaine to reduce their stress, or they picked heroin to reduce their stress. But he, as a physician, had picked classical music CDs. And you're like, wait, what? What is that? That doesn't make any sense. You're like, no, listen to the story. So what he would say is he would go out for lunch from work, and he'd go to the local store, and he would spend an hour and a half in the store. Mm-hmm. And then he would spend $1,000 on CDs that he already had. Mm. Then he'd come back to work, and he'd now be an hour late because he'd spent so much time in the store. And the staff was mad. The patients were mad. And then he would lie to them about where he'd been. He'd like, I was, busy. Like I had an emergency, blah, 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 blah. When all the time he'd been at a record store. Mm-hmm. Then he'd get home, and his wife's like, what the hell's this credit card bill for $1,000 at the store? And he's like, that was something, da, 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 da. And you're like, so he was doing all the same things, saying all the same things that a heroin addict does, that a cocaine addict does. But his stress reducer, CDs with classical music, had now turned into a stress producer, mm-hmm. which then made him want to go back to the store, buy some more CDs.
Mm. Wow. That is very, very interesting. So in reference to stress reduction.
Correct.
Okay. You and I had started a little thing in the last podcast.
Okay.
That I was thinking we were going to go through in reference to it. Because, I had a lot of stress on me, and, I was, I don't know if you have the notes from the last time, from it, but, we kind of like was at the point where we were ready to just let go of everybody and just, put up the barriers and, be the, silent person. Because of the, of the loneliness I had and so on. Well, it kind of changed over the past couple weeks. I actually got to see one of my classmates. And when I got to see him during that time, even though it was a few minutes, but it was in Atlantic City, it was for a few minutes, but it actually lifted that barrier of the loneliness, physically seeing people up and out. So now, I can say I'm alone, but I don't feel alone.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
So
there's a big difference between choosing to be alone and being lonely, because when you're lonely, that's because you're by yourself, not by choice.
Yeah.
But being alone is when you go, hey, I just want to be by myself for right now.
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, seeing him for the few minutes, and it was great. And, we got to talking and everything. And so, like I said, it was worth it. Wind up being excuse me a second. It's called sleep apnea.
Yeah. I got you.
So I wind up going a little crazy that night, but it was all the excitement and all in fun, and it was manageable, I will say.
Wait, tell me what that means as you say you went crazy. What does that mean?
Okay. I said I went to Atlantic City. I originally went with $160. Okay. To gamble with. And I dropped about 400.
Okay.
That's the crazy part.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. I gambled more, but I was having a good time. Even though, he was with his kids, and it's 11 something at night when I saw him. So
how old were his kids?
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember asking.
Okay. I mean, they were adults or they were small kids?
They're younger, like maybe high school, maybe.
Okay.
I didn't question it. I was just happy to see him.
Yeah, sure.
So, and, so we, we would talk about, what slots do I play? And I pointed them because we were right by them. So I pointed them and I said, those are the ones I play when I come here. I said, those are the only two types I play, and, so like I said, it was a couple of minutes, but it took so much off of me that it just went wild. I mean, like I said, I dropped $400 doing it. Gotcha. But at the same time, I was enjoying it because, getting to see someone I haven't seen in a couple of years, but it has helped me, when I needed it. Yeah. So, because I had dissolved the word friendship. So to him, it's not a friend, he's a classmate. Yeah. So I've kind of created new
new category.
New categories.
Yeah, I got it. My wife does the same thing. So
yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah, so I don't use friendship. Anybody that uses the word friendship around me, I'm like, sorry, I don't hear that word. I don't allow that word because I put too much stress into that word of what I wanted as a friend.
Gotcha.
So now I have classmates, acquaintances, neighbors, foundations, relationships.
Wait, I remember you had two people in your life that you relied on. So what do you call them?
Relationship.
That's just a relationship.
That's just relationship foundations.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not friendship. That's a different category.
That's a whole, because they've done more. They've been there more than that, even though I rarely see them physically.
Yeah, I get
But
that. No, it's you're interesting because what you're bringing up is this idea of labels and how labels can affect how we think. And sometimes just by changing the label, then you can be in a more comfortable position. So my wife does the same thing. So she had some painful friendships in the past. And so she did same kind of thing where you're saying she didn't want to have friends because it was too painful. So I was like, but you talk to your sister like 4 times a week. Well, she's not a friend. She's a sister. Well, you talk to this person. Well, that's not my friend. That's your friend. And I just kind of like, use them through you. And you're like, so she just kind of narrowed down the definition of friend because it was too painful. And I will say to you this, that I finished this book I read called The Real You by a guy named Andrew Parr. And he talks about these core beliefs. And that's one of them one of the beliefs is that relationships are in the general sense of humanity, relationships are supposed to be a pleasurable thing. But too many people from their experiences now see relationships or friendships as a painful thing, something to be avoided. And so then they end up being lonely because they're like, I don't want to have friends because it's too painful, but I don't want to be by myself. And so they end up in this catch-22 where they don't want to be friends with people because it's too painful, but they don't want to be by themselves because it's too lonely.
Right.
And so it's a very big dilemma, and you got to find ways to get out of that, to get to a point where you can then feel comfortable and change that little belief in their head that all relationships aren't painful.
Right. And I'm not saying that the two, that are in my life are really painful.
Well, they're not. That's why they're there. I mean, you describe them as foundational. So it's like, but that's so one of the answers, and you're bringing up the answer. It's just like, well, relabel. And so instead of them being friends, that's associated with pain. I'm going to call them a classmate, or I'm going to call them a foundational relationship. So now they're not in that, friendship is painful. They're now in some other category that you've made. And so then they can exist. Yeah. So that's certainly one way to deal with it. The other way is to get better at relationships so that they don't end up becoming painful.
Yeah. Well, we're working on one with that in reference to that. The second one, I don't have to worry about. I mean, but the only thing is I only see that person once a year in reference to that. The other one I'm attempting to bring up here.
Okay.
Right,
but to be honest with you, for you, sometimes that distance might be a good thing, right? Because there's less negative interactions. Like I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying that sometimes what I've seen is when people, like I've seen couples that, they're like a long distance relationship and it works. And then they get together and they start living together. And then all of a sudden things start falling apart because now there's cracks that show up. There's roommate issues that show up. There's, things that they could have just left alone because, hey, it's, I didn't get to see it for a month, so let's forget about that. Now all of a sudden it's every day. So now you got to deal with it. Yeah. So it can make it difficult. So distance can be helpful. It can be also hurtful. And again, it depends on the relationship and what the relationship is built on. Right. But if you can just get to the point where you say, and here's one of the keys is to say, not all relationships are painful. Right. There can be one or two, but this is where there's a rule that I have called the 18 out of 20. Okay. And what that means is when I was working in my office and I would see 20 patients in a day, 18 out of them would be good. Like, hey, how you doing? This is great. Thanks so much for doing that. Are you this? Or my kids are this, or whatever. They were very pleasant interactions. But 2 of them would be pains in the butts. And they're yelling at me. They're yelling at my staff. Something didn't go right. Blah, 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 blah. And when I would go home, who do you think I would tell my wife about? The 18. Well, no. In the beginning, I would tell her about the 2 that didn't go right. Like, can you believe I had these 2 patients? Blah, 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 right? Yeah. So that's when I had to change. And I go, you know what? We need to do the 18 out of 20 rule because I said, now when I come home, I go, oh, honey, I had 18 patients that said you were great, Dr. Sprouse. Yeah. And that makes me feel good. Yep. And my wife then gets to hear about positive things as opposed to 2 negative things. Yeah. And so I would say the same thing about relationships, because I'm going to bet that the majority of relationships or neutral to pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be one or two that are going to be painful because something didn't go right.
Right.
And that's going to be the one you focus on. That's what I'm trying to say. So the
Right.
18 out of 20, you have to look at all the relationships you have and go, wait, most of my relationships are going just fine. These two things didn't go right.
Yeah.
And then start examining what went wrong. So at some point in my life, I got divorced and I had to go back, and the whole process of getting divorced was painful, but that pain made me go back and read and go to counseling and inspect myself and where I was coming from. And so now that I'm in a new marriage, I'm way better at relationships. So this relationship has way more chances of ending. There's continuing to be positive as opposed to breaking up.
Yeah. And in reference to the two personal ones, I mean, I attempt to stay as positive as I can, but at the same time, it's kind of hard because of the challenges I live by, that I've mentioned, some that I can't mention on here, but
right.
In reference to, those.
In your past,
Yeah.
So,
but they both have looked over that.
Yes.
So,
and that's why they become friends. And that's why what you have is somebody who's empathetic and non-judgmental.
Right.
That is worth your weight. That's
yeah.
You don't need 50 of those. You only need a couple of those.
Yep.
Right?
Well, and I got two strong ones. I will say that because
that's what I hear.
Yeah. And, like I said, one, I actually would say that, if I was gone per se,
that's a nice thought.
No. But you got to listen to what she had said to me if this happened.
Yeah.
If I was to leave that person, she will hunt me down, track me. Literally. And I said, okay, I'm not even going to attempt to go past that anymore. I know where that's going. And then of course, the other one, really fights. I will say that the second one really fights to remind me not to leave. I mean, that one would not use.
I mean, if your underlying theme is that relationships are painful, then you are going to have to fight to stay in these relationships. But here's what I'm going to say to you. You're bringing something to those relationships too. They're getting something from you because it's always a two-way street. So whatever it is you're doing is good to them because that's why they're still hanging around and willing to fight to be with you. So, give yourself a pat on the back that you're doing something to stay in this relationship. It's not like they're there for no good reason. They're there to because you're giving them something.
Yeah. And believe me, yeah. Well, in reference to the one, anything technical, she wouldn't understand. Okay. As compared to the in reference to the second one, I'm learning that I'm bringing something into it. And as I'm bringing it, where things are flowing through, we'll say more than I would think in reference.
Well, I mean, every relationship is a two-sided coin, right? I mean, there's going to be stuff you're bringing to the relationship and stuff they're bringing. So,
right.
And I think if that's what you're describing, that there's a flow between the two of you, that would make sense.
Well, actually, the flow I'm talking about is ideas.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, since February, I mean, if you notice, I'm not in a normal quote unquote location. Okay. This is actually the PhillyCAM studio.
Oh, okay.
Where I'm at.
Okay.
This is actually the AV room.
Gotcha.
Where I can do everything. So, what I talked about with Dr. Sprouse beforehand is another part of this building in reference to an idea that I was working on, that I actually have a live event coming. And I had talked to his representatives and, about it, and I was waiting, and, it took a little bit, and I really didn't have the time to wait because I wanted to get that going. But, I did, when Dr. Sprouse came up before we started this podcast, I explained, I said, I could do another booking of it, that we could do it. So we're going to be working on having Dr. Sprouse here in Philadelphia,
Nice.
possibly either late September, early October.
Yeah, I grew up in Ambler, right?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, I'm a Philly boy. So.
Yeah. So where this is at is kind of going to be close for you in reference to it.
Yeah.
Because we're actually right by, believe it or not, if I was to stretch my hand outside this building, I would actually be touching Independence Hall.
Oh, okay.
That's how close.
Yeah, you're right downtown.
Yeah. So, and in reference to it, when this is set up, folks, and this would be a suggested donation, we could have 50 people. Okay. So it would be a 50 ticket opportunity. There will be a suggested donation because there is going to be some costs to me that I have to occur in reference to studio crew and stuff, but hopefully I might be able to get around that one. But actually, more of the suggested donation is to really help the podcast more in being able to do these events. Now, if I go crazy enough and turn around and throw a buffet type thing in, it's going to go through the roof. Okay. It wouldn't be like a $20 ticket. It would be like about $100 by the top. Well, no, not $100.
Yeah, that's a lot, but
70. Because what I'm doing for the one originally that I had talked to Dr. Sprouse about came out to about $70.
Gotcha.
But there's another option that I didn't talk to Dr. Sprouse about. That's a weekend meet and greet wise. I think I did mention this to you. We are planning a meet and greet October 23rd to 25th at Atlantic City. If you go to the lifewithjoeycalvo website and you scroll down the homepage, you will see the event right now. And just to give you an idea of, who we have as part of it. There we go.
Da-da.
Da-da-da. Yep. American Fox will be part of it. So if you want to meet her in person, you definitely want to go on the lifewithjoeycalvo website and, buy your tickets now. And that's for Friday, October 23rd to 25th. Once we get enough tickets sold pre-sale wise, then we'll let you know where the location will be for it. So everything is being built off of it. And if we get Dr. Gary for a weekend, more will be discussed about it. So let's get back more into stress reductions, because more I'm saying this, more stress I'm probably building up in reference to it, because I'm, having the issues of, being the travel agent and booking, making sure that, everything is all booked and everything, and trying to make sure that, we have enough to cover everything.
Sure.
So, you mentioned the 18 out of 20 rule. What else do you like when you have other clients? Okay. What else do you work with within those clients besides, the stress reduction?
So one of the things that we talk about is in the book that I wrote, Highway to Your Happy Place, A Roadmap to Less Stress. There's a topic that comes up. There's one chapter on guilt and there's one chapter on regret. And when I first started writing that book, I was writing them out as if they were the same thing. That guilt, regret, they're kind of interchangeable. And then as I was writing, what I realized was, wait, no, these are totally different things. So guilt is a shame that goes along with breaking a rule. Regret is I made a decision and it didn't go as well as I would like. Way different things. So when someone feels guilty, they broke a rule. So like, you were speeding and the cop pulls you over and gives you a ticket. And you should feel guilt because you were speeding and you were breaking a rule. What I find with guilt is where people get into trouble is that they beat themselves up forever, and they beat themselves up. Yeah, I was going there, right? They beat themselves up like with a 10 when it should be a 1. So one of the things I talk about is how do we make, so we don't want to get rid of guilt.
Right.
That my goal is not to get rid of guilt because we want people to go, hey, I feel bad that I didn't follow the rules. What I see is like you go, you watch a courtroom show and the lady who has killed somebody and she's falling apart and she's screaming and crying. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did that. It was a moment of this. And, and we go, okay, well, we don't like that you killed someone, but you get it that you shouldn't be doing that. What we don't like is when you see some cold-blooded killer sitting there going, yeah, I killed him, whatever. Let's go on. You're like, what? You just killed somebody and you didn't even pay attention? No, we don't like you. You go to jail forever. So the whole point of guilt is to get humans to live within a community with a set of rules so that we can keep living together without a lot of conflict. So we've made up these rules and we say, okay, live within these rules. But if you go outside the rules, then you should feel bad because now you're not in the rules anymore. And that's so what guilt is supposed to do is shape your behavior. So I see this with people who've had problems with alcohol. So they've had problems with alcohol. So they've been drinking too much and they've caused fights and they might have gotten arrested and they messed up their families and they were mean to their kids and they did things, they lied to people. But then when they stop drinking, like part of the 12-step programs is to go back and say, basically, I'm sorry when it's reasonable, right? And it's not going to hurt the other person, is you go back and say, you know what? That was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. And so what you're doing then is you're going, I've changed my behavior. So if you change your behavior, then you did what guilt was telling you to do. So guilt is there as a tool to get you to change your behavior, to conform to whatever the rules are. So if you've changed your behavior, then you should forgive yourself. Now, if you go back and go start drinking again, well, then you have to feel guilty again. But if you're not doing whatever it was that you broke the rule again, then guilt did what it was supposed to. So you don't need it as much so that you can stop beating yourself up. I don't know if you've ever watched there's a movie that, where the guy, it's, what's it called? Liar, Liar, right?
Oh, it's with Jim Carrey.
Carrey.
I believe I saw it.
Right. Well, there's a scene where he can't lie.
Yeah.
So now he's telling some stuff that he didn't really want to say. So he goes into the bathroom and he says, I'm beating the shit out of myself. And he's hitting himself with a toilet and he's punching himself in the face. And he's like, that's what people do to themselves. So if you've changed your behavior, you don't need to do that anymore. And so then I talk about forgiveness, and it's a 5-step process. So the first step is to name the hurt, because you're not saying I didn't do anything. You're not ignoring that something happened, but here's what happened. Because keeping that stuff secret is very energy intensive. It takes a lot of effort and energy to keep the secret inside. So when you can let it out to somebody who's empathetic and who's non-judgmental, it is a huge relief to the person. And I felt that when I was a doctor, that I would have patients come in and tell me things that they hadn't told anybody else. And you could see they walked out of the room lighter because now they had somebody that they could share this with. Yeah. And then 2 is name the hurt. So, what happened? Like I'm telling the story, but here's why it hurt me. And then the next step is to change. Like you have to make the change, because saying how many kids have you seen? Like, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, no, that doesn't count. It's got to be like, I'm changing what I'm going to do. I'm not going to drink again, or whatever it was. Then the next step is to ask for the forgiveness. And then the last step is what I call, well, this comes from a guy named Desmond Tutu. And he says, you either renew the relationship or you get rid of the relationship. And so when you're dealing with another person, you can go, okay, look, I know you were drinking and now you're not. And I see that you've changed. So let's renew the relationship. And now it's better because now you're not drinking and we've worked through some of the issues and now I can trust you again. And right.
Yeah.
Or you go, you know what? We're not going to keep this relationship going on because there's too much water under the bridge. So I'm going to forgive you, but we're not going to keep this relationship. Now, and that works with the people. Now, it doesn't work that quickly, right? So some people it's fast. Other people might take months or years. The big problem is when it's yourself, because you don't have that last option, right? Because you have to live with yourself forever. So you don't get to go, okay, yeah, we're not going to have that relationship anymore because you're with you forever, right? So you have to figure out a way to forgive yourself. And that comes down to...
Actually, I've managed to get around where I'm not forgiving myself.
No.
I can still be like I am right now. Okay. And associate with people and chat with people. But in reference to me, nope. I mean, I could accept things for myself. I know I've been forgiven in other ways, but in reference to me, in reference to forgiveness, no.
So when you say you haven't forgiven yourself, do you mean that you continue to beat yourself up every night and say what a bad person I am?
No.
Or actually, do you say I did something in the past and that wasn't a good thing, but now I'm not doing that anymore? It's
kind of both, but I don't actually, quote unquote, beat myself up as much. I don't get depressed from it. I don't say where, you're out of my life. I'm not, I don't say that to people.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, to me, what you just said to me, you have forgiven yourself in a limited fashion. And here's why. Because what you're saying is, I've told myself the story. I've named what it was that I did that was wrong. I stopped doing it. So it's not happening anymore. And so then I've asked for forgiveness and I've said, okay, let's start anew. Let's start this relationship over again and let's move forward. That was a mark. I don't want to ever do that again. Right. So you are feeling the normal sense of guilt, which is I did something I shouldn't have, but you're not sitting there going, I'm depressed and I'm suicidal because of what happened in the past, because that you can't change. All you can change is your future behavior. So as long as you're not doing it again, then you have forgiven yourself and you haven't forgotten, right? I'm not saying that you forgot what happened, but you've said, hey, I'm not that person. Like I'm not that doesn't define me. Let me put it that way.
Okay. Actually, the person that I got the forgiveness from was God.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That's one of the whole reasons we have God and Jesus and the resurrection was just for that reason. Yeah. You have God who says he's the most omniscient thing out there. Yeah. And he says, hey, Joey, I'm forgiving you because, and you're like, okay, like who are you not to listen, right? But I've had people in my life that didn't forgive themselves and kept beating themselves up. And it wasn't like something on a daily basis, but you could see that their self-esteem, their life, their choices they made were different because they felt bad about themselves. And when I bring up God and Jesus and his salvation, they were like, yeah, that's for other people, not for me.
Yeah. And like I said, he has forgiven me, but I will never forgive me for that incident. as much as you're saying right now that I have, I just don't show the beating up anymore.
Well,
Is right.
but that's growth, right?
Yeah, I mean it's growth, but it's still not going to be to where I'm going to say to myself, okay, you're going to start new. We've attempted to start new the one time that we did forgive ourselves, and it went right back into the barriers. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to forgive you this time for it. And, I'm just going to try to,
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're keeping it around as a reminder not to do that.
Right.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, when I see people that drink alcohol, here's what I say to them. You have a track in your brain that says when that trigger goes off, go do this, go drink alcohol. Well, I don't, as a physician, I don't have the skill to zap out the track. So the track is always there. So it doesn't take much for you, doesn't take much drinking alcohol to get you back right where you were before. So what we work together is like, let's not use that track anymore. But that track is one of 1,000 tracks. In your case, what happened, your act was one of 1,000 acts that you've had over your lifetime. So that act doesn't need to define you, and it doesn't need to be the label that, you describe yourself as you move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And, in reference to it,
so where would you say your self-esteem would be?
Oh, I still have low self-esteem in reference to myself. I still will say that, I'm ugly and all that, but in a way, I could say that I'm getting out of the low and maybe towards the excuse me, towards the medium, being in the middle of the,
Well, but that's a positive move, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I will say it is. I mean, I will say I'm maybe a 3 now instead of a 1 for right now.
There you go. That's a big growth.
Yeah. And it's a nice growth because, like I said, when I saw my classmate, it lifted a level off of me that, that I mentioned earlier about, that there is no such word as friendship, with all the other labels I created in reference to it, that doesn't hurt.
Yeah, absolutely.
In reference to it. So, so now, I would go outside, if I need to cool off, with this heat and everything. If I had the opportunity to go outside and cool off, there's this little bench that was donated in my neighborhood, and many neighbors got them, and it came with an umbrella and everything. And we just had these storms, these microbursts that came by, and unfortunately, mine got destroyed.
Oh no!
The umbrella part more.
Yeah.
So, because I would sit out there, and yes, all folks can think I'm crazy, and really would need to see a psychiatrist for what I do in reference to it. But yes, if there's lightning and thunder, I will sit outside. Not because of that, thinking, oh, I'm going to get hit by lightning, but just the cooling off of the rain hitting me. Even though, of course, yeah, you got to watch the lightning and the thunder around and all that. But I don't have that thought of, I'm going to get struck by lightning. I'm going to end my life. That's why.
Yeah, you're not being suicidal.
I'm not being suicidal. I'm just enjoying what, God has brought out.
Absolutely.
In reference to the rain. And one thing I always tell myself is when it's lightning out, it's like there's a bowling alley in heaven. Okay. And someone bowled a strike. And when there's a strike, a lightning strike comes down. So,
hey, this is what the Romans and the Greeks thought, and they were pretty smart, right?
yeah. So, so we still have some time.
So the other half of that equation then is regret. So
Mhm.
regret is a different process because that involves our ability to choose. And so no other animal has regret. Like my dog does not regret peeing on the floor. She doesn't regret biting somebody because she doesn't have a choice. She only gets to do what her brain tells her to do.
Right.
So there's no awareness that she did something wrong. And so, or something bad. And so regret is I made a choice and the outcome didn't go as well as I wanted.
Right.
So I use myself as an example. So when I was in my practice, my computer was old and I had just hired a new office manager. And she said, your computer's old and we need a new one. It's going to cost $20,000 or whatever it was. Right. And I said, but you're the only one that knows this system. So if something happened to you, this would be a mess. And she's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. I really like working here. Right. So I order the computer, pay the 20 grand, and the computer hasn't even come yet.
Oh, wow.
And the office manager comes to me and says, yeah, I found a job that's paying me $20 an hour more, so I'm leaving. And I'm like, wait, what? So then I was regretting my decision.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we bought this the computer came and we struggled. We finally figured out how to use it, but it was a big struggle.
Yeah.
But when I went back, what I realized was decisions are made with future in mind. So what I was trying to do was solve a problem. I had an old computer and it needed to be upgraded. And at the time, my office manager thought she was going to be there. It was a better system. The money was reasonable for what we were buying. And she was going to teach the rest of the staff. So when I went back to look at that decision with the information that I had, it was a good decision. So there was no reason to regret the decision because the decision with the information I had was good. And what I realized when we're making our decisions that there's always an information deficit. Like we never have all the present information and we certainly don't know what's going to happen in the future. So all decisions can be questioned and regretted because we don't have all the information. Now, what I did do then was, so I decided not to regret the decision, that we just had to move on and make it work. But the second thing then is if we had to buy a new computer system, then I would do a different process. I would make sure everybody in the office knew, or I would know that training was going to come down from the computer company or whatever, so that we didn't rely on one person to teach us how to use the machine. So what that means then is you tweak your decision-making process. So now what I find is if I'm getting ready to like I'll watch some infomercial and go, oh, I really like that. I really want to do that. And what I've learned about myself is, put a break on. And then I have an advisor and I call her and say, hey, I saw this podcast and it's infomercial and I think it's a really good idea. What do you think? And she's like, no. And then you back up. So that part of my process now is just not go, hey, heard an infomercial, buy it. My process now, hear an infomercial, talk to my advisor, wait a week, and then go back and decide if you're going to buy it. Yeah. So that then you end up with a lot less regret.
Yeah. And, so hopefully, in reference to it, you're making a much better decision, like you said, and going in a better direction with it.
I'm increasing the chances that I'm going to like the outcome of my decision.
Yeah. Like now in reference with mine, it's just it will feel complicated eventually because it comes back to the past.
Well, this is where they're similar. So regret and guilt are similar in that they both happened in the past. And you can't change that.
Yeah.
Like it's just there. It's there. Yeah. So you have to figure out a way to deal with it because it's not gone anywhere. You can't go back in time and go, okay, I'm not going to do that. So it's there. But that also is important that it's there. It's back there. It's not. So you can't change what happened, but you can change what's going to happen.
Right.
And that's what you've done. You've changed how you do things as you go forward.
Yeah.
And that's what guilt and regret are meant to do, is not change what happened in the past, but change what happens in the future.
Right. And like I said, when there's times that I am in the depressed state, it does bring back the past and, reminding me of what I really did and, the damage I really caused myself.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm like, well, I have these two people in my life that are fighting me to stay forward.
Yes.
And not, close the door on them.
And now you have 3.
You got 3, yeah.
Now I'm here telling you, stay forward.
Yeah. Yeah. For that, I would need a whole weekend on that. Okay. Okay. And you know what I just talked about earlier in reference to what I'm attempting to do for about a weekend.
Uh-huh.
And just to let you know, folks, in reference to that idea that I mentioned about Atlantic City, there's more to that than you think. Okay. Because the participants, all right, are coming up on a Wednesday. Okay. So I booked them from a Wednesday to a Monday, literally, in reference to this. Now, if I get Dr. Gary involved, he'd let me know and, we could do it. But I was told that somebody will be on a cruise ship enjoying life much better than I would be in reference to it because it was spoken to him about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what was told.
Yeah. Well, that might be a problem, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I can zoom in from the cruise ship.
Yeah. Well, it kind of be hard on that to, have people come up and meet a screenshot, in reference to it. But, so we have a little under 10 minutes left. Okay. What do we have next for Dr. Gary?
Well, so what I'm working on right now is taking that idea of loop, like being in this. So what I want to do, to be honest with you, is get rid of the word addiction.
Okay.
Because what I find is that word is stigmatizing.
Mm-hmm.
It's ostracizing.
Mm-hmm.
It's punishing.
Mm-hmm.
It's self-esteem reducing. It's erasing self-esteem.
Amen.
And what happens then is people don't want to admit that they have a problem because they don't want to take on that label. So they are fighting you and they're defensive and they're like, not me. And they go to great lengths to not take on that label to the point where they only will take the label on when they've hit that proverbial rock bottom.
Right.
And they go, oh, my life sucks so bad. All right, fine. I'll take on the label. Yeah. So what I want to do is get rid of that label because it's not helping. It's actually hurting.
Right.
And what I want to do is change it to the stress reducer loop. So now what happens is if somebody's drinking alcohol and they're getting in trouble from it, instead of saying you're an alcoholic, you're a drug addict, you're whatever, what I say is you are in a loop. And we need to, so what I'm working on is a program, and I'm going to call it Loop Breakers.
Okay.
To help people get out of their loop. And in that Loop Breakers program is what I call wins. And wins, this is how I'm going to get people out of their loops. So wins is I'm going to give you wisdom. I'm going to give you insight. And then we're going to work on a new track, a new stress reducer. Mm-hmm. And then we got to find a safe place for you to practice this till it becomes your automatic go-to.
Okay.
And when you have all that information, then you won't need to be in that loop anymore.
Right. And people will say that because of me going to Atlantic City. The reason why I go to Atlantic City once a month, okay, is people will say I'm addicted to slots. Okay. You want to say that? You can say it. My reasoning why I go is because of my past. That is my safe zone, I call it. Because I know that when I go, nothing can happen.
Nothing bad can happen.
Nothing bad can happen.
Wow. So there's a huge difference between a stress reducer and a stress reducer loop. Mm-hmm. So I will go out and drink. I'll go do karaoke with my wife and have a couple beers. That doesn't mean that I'm in a stress reducer loop. Now, if I was going out and having 12 beers and I was getting into fights, and I was getting kicked out of the bar because whatever. And my wife is yelling at me, okay, now that stress reducer, a couple beers, has turned into a stress reducer loop. And quantity isn't what makes the difference. So I've had patients where a husband and wife got married. The wife got married to him because he didn't drink. Okay. Because her father was a really bad alcoholic. And he started with, he had a business, it wasn't going well. He had 1 beer, then he had 6 beer, then he had a gallon of alcohol, right? It was like she saw that progression and she's like, I'm marrying somebody who doesn't drink.
Right.
So now her husband's got his own business and he starts having a beer every night. And she's like, no, we are not going there. Like, this is what happened to my father, and I'm leaving you if you have 1 drink. So he's like, but it's only 1 drink. She goes, I don't care. I've watched that happen, and I'm not doing that again. So in that guy's life, 1 beer is too many. That becomes the stress reducer loop. So he needs to find some other way to reduce his stress that besides alcohol, because it's setting his wife off because of her past. So quantity isn't the issue. It's what problems is it causing in your life. So I had a patient who was a smoker, and we were talking about her sister, and she's like, yeah, I haven't seen my sister in 6 years. And I'm like, well, why not? She goes, well, she lives on the West Coast. I'm like, okay, we'll just get on a plane and go out and see her. She's like, no, you don't understand. I can't go that long without a cigarette. And I'm like, wait, let me get this straight. So one of the side effects of your smoking cigarettes is you don't get to see your sister. And she's like, whoa, wait, I didn't realize that. That was the insight that she needed. And then she's like, you're right, I need to get off cigarettes because that's crazy, right? So a lot of times people don't necessarily put the side effects to what it is that they're doing. So I'm sure there's plenty of husbands out there going, I drink because my wife is a bitch. And the wife goes, oh, I'm a bitch because you drink, right? So it's like you have to figure out where the side effects of what you're doing. What are the effects of what your stress reducer is doing? And are they causing problems in your life? That's where, because that's when you say, hey, I need some help, because it's really hard to break a loop by yourself. It's hard to recognize and it's hard to break because you get so used to it. It's become ingrained a part of you. It's part of your identity in a lot of cases. And so it gets hard to do by yourself, which is why I think what my loop breakers are going to be a group activity, because what I find is humans can inhibit, like we can say, no, I'm not going to drink ever again. Or you could say, no, I'm not going to go to Atlantic City ever again. Right. But your brain is like, no, we really want that. Like, we like that. We enjoy it. That's our safe place, blah, blah, blah. And they figure out ways, your brain will figure out ways to convince you that, yeah, sure, it's okay to go.
Yeah.
So in those weak moments when you've gotten into a loop, which you are not, Atlantic City is not a loop. Okay.
Yeah.
If you get in a loop, then you need help to say, no, I'm not going to do that. While you're building a new track is what I am going to do.
Yeah.
So for me, like, I was doing a smoking in group with some people, and I said, I'm going to give up something. So I said, well, I drink 6 or 7 Diet Cokes a day. I'm going to give up Diet Coke. And they're like, they looked at me like, no, you're not. You can't do that. I'm like, yeah, I am. Yes, I am. Right. So I switched over to water, which was incredibly boring. And I'm like, oh, this is not good. And I was feeling deprived. But then I discovered a flavoring called Mio. And so then I have a bottle of water, put some Mio in there. And now I haven't had Diet Coke in 20 years. And more importantly, I don't feel deprived. So my wife drinks Diet Coke every once in a while. And we'll be on an 8-hour trip, and there's a Diet Coke sitting right next to me. And I could care less because I got my water with Mio. So I don't feel deprived, and I don't do that anymore. And these are the techniques that get people out of their loops.
Yeah. And so definitely, and in reference to the same story with you and giving up something, the first foundational relationship, when she met me, would see a bottle of cherry Pepsi on the side of my bed. And she's like, you drink that warm in bed? I said, me and my ex used to carry, we would put a bottle of soda on the side of the bed. If we got thirsty during the night, we drank.
Okay, sure.
So then she turned around. She was like, I'm very concerned about your health. Would you believe the next day I quit soda cold turkey?
Wow. Good for you.
And I have not had as much as I've wanted, or sometimes I've slipped. And, maybe have a Slurpee type of
Okay.
it, of like Coke or something. But I will not touch a bottle of soda. And I haven't for like almost 15 years,
Wow. Good
15,
for you.
16 years. Now, do I really have that craving for soda? Once in a while I do. I mean, I would love to have, a bottle of cherry Pepsi again, because I love cherry soda, cherry cola. But I found a new backup, a new alternative.
Yeah.
Water is supposed to be a part of it. And I agree with you that it was boring, but I also get yelled by my doctors because I've been dehydrated. And matter of fact, a year ago, I actually was in the hospital because I was dehydrated.
Oh.
So, I'm learning, but it's still the challenge of me and water. But you will see me drinking either the following: lemonade,
Mm-hmm.
strawberry lemonade, raspberry lemonade,
That's good. I like that.
or iced coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's Dunkin', there are 2 locations that still have banana syrup. So I could do a banana iced coffee, decaf, peanut butter, which is out now, chocolate cookie, mocha caramel, whatever. McDonald's, same thing. Caramel iced coffee or caramel mocha iced coffee. Wawa, don't get me started there.
Well, so you basically found alternatives, which then what that means then is you don't have to sit there every minute of the day going, no, I'm not going to drink a cherry cola. No, I'm not. Because you can go, oh yeah, I'm going to go do that. And now that's become your automatic.
Yeah.
Like when you get thirsty, you're not going, where's my where's my cola Pepsi? You're going, where's my mocha chocolate, peanut butter, whatever. Right.
Yeah. Right.
So like, that's what I find. Like, so instead of me going, where's my Diet Coke? I'm going automatically to where's my water with Mio in it.
Right.
So, and that's when you get there, because then there's no feeling when you're not feeling deprived.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's easy.
Yeah.
So I was just talking to a friend of mine who stopped smoking 40 days ago.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my God, this is so hard.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's so hard about it? She goes, oh my God, this is like the one thing I really enjoyed. And I'm like, stop thinking about it as the thing that you enjoy, that you're giving up, because that's hard.
Yeah.
Think of it as you got rid of this thing that was trying to kill me. Right. You got rid of this thing that was a cancer in my lung. You got rid of this thing that was stalking you and out in your yard trying to kill you. And
okay, we do have to wrap it up.
Sure.
Because my time is up here, especially. And and the website for Dr. Sprouse is lessstressdoc.com. So definitely go there, learn some more things. Thank you, everybody, for watching the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. God bless you all.